Graduate employability is the cornerstone of the University of Nottingham Malaysia's student outcomes and is supported by an award-winning careers office. Based on annual surveys, graduates at the Malaysia campus are hired by the world's top 100 global brands and hired within 6 months of graduation. Start your journey this September at the foundation, undergraduate or postgraduate level with the University of Nottingham Malaysia. Learn more at nottingham.edu.my.
This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Good morning. Welcome to Resource Centre. This is Audrey Raj. On the show today, we're going to be talking about P2P financing or peer-to-peer financing with Tunku Danny Nasaifuddin Muzaffar, CEO and founder of microLEAP, as well as Matthew Fernandez, partner and COO of microLEAP. Now, microLEAP is an Islamic and unconventional P2P financing platform regulated by the Securities Commission of Malaysia. They've thus far disbursed over 20 million ringgit in financing to its issuers and hope to build a community of P2P investors that are looking for impact investments in micro enterprises looking for alternative financing. Gentlemen, welcome to Resource Centre.
Good morning, Audrey.
Morning, Audrey. Thank you.
So, can we start with some background into P2P? What's the purpose of P2P lending and has it played an important role in the Malaysian landscape?
Yeah, so let me start. So thank you, Audrey, for giving us the opportunity to come here. So P2P or peer-to-peer financing is both a investment platform and a financing platform that is regulated by the Securities Commission of Malaysia. According to the SC, there is a 90 billion ringgit funding cap for micro and small medium enterprises in the country, which is huge, which is why they have regulated and set up P2P operators. They have 11 that is regulated by the Securities Commission, and the aim is to really plug this 90 billion ringgit funding gap. So how it works is, my favorite example is your makcik in Kuala Pilah that wants 10,000 ringgit. She can't get financing from a bank. She goes to an alternative financing operator such as us, and she gets funded not by a bank, but say 100 people. You or me, anyone, any individuals that looking for yield, returns. There's also impact by giving these financing to these small micro enterprises.
Right. And is there a cap to it? Because you spoke about the makcik in Kuala Pilah, right? And that's just 10K. But is there a cap to how much entrepreneurs can actually obtain via P2P financing?
Yeah, there's no cap under our regulation. So we funded anywhere from your makcik for 10,000 ringgit, but also big names like Money Match we financed them 1 million ringgit. So our range is pretty large.
Right.
Yep.
I asked earlier about the impact that it's made on the Malaysian landscape. And has it played an important role in Malaysia over the years, P2P financing?
Yes, definitely. So our example, which Matthew can chime in, is we had a goreng pisang seller down in JB, who Matthew used to go as a kid. She needed about 15,000 ringgit to raise her financing. It was a 30-year business. She's making revenue, but she only registered her company 2 years ago. Now, she went to all the banks. The bank said you do not meet the minimum criteria for 3 years of operations, so she couldn't get a loan. She came to us. She hosted her investment note, we call it, on our platform. And within 2 days, she managed to raise that 15,000 ringgit. She used it for store renovation and also online and offline ads. And she actually saw a 30% increase in sales because of it.
Yep. It was, I literally used to cycle to that shop. So I know exactly where it was. I was like, oh, okay, is this the same one? And she was like, yeah, this is the same business, but only issue is, and she pivoted online. I think that was the important thing for us.
Right.
Because maybe the banks didn't see that, or they didn't count the Food Panda, Grab sales, etc. But for us, that revenue meant that, you can definitely afford your financing. And thankfully, I can happily say that she's fully repaid as well. So all the investors are happy. She did an early settlement. But that's the kind of thing. Like we saw that opportunity where she pivoted. Maybe the banks can't see it, but and also the important part was she kept coming back to us. There was no real wastage of time. If there was any things that we needed from her,
quite responsive.
Quite responsive. Because the problem is sometimes the issuers are not responsive yet are basically giving us an earful of, why is it taking so long? But we're still waiting on your documentation. So so that was one of the things which in this case was kind of seamless, and as Tunku Danny's pointed out, it was 2 days when she was fully funded, so it was fast.
Right.
So
that's really quick. But what kind of checks do you have to go? Does an issuer have to go through? What's the evaluation process like?
Yeah. So under Securities Commission rules, we cannot help finance personal financing. It's strictly prohibited.
Yep.
Because I agree, because you're only allowed to finance companies. So minimum is a sole prop or enterprise. I think SC's thinking is they want to get financing to these small companies for them to make more money, rather than personal financing where you borrow to buy the latest iPhone, for example. So what she needed was her financial statements. Everything is online. She didn't even have to come to see us face to face. I've never actually met her.
I have. I went back to JB, thankfully. Yeah.
So financial statements, bank account statements. We need to show that she's making enough revenue and enough profit to pay back her financing. And she needs to be just a minimum operation within 6 months. And then we host it on our platform. And if investors like it, then they will invest or lend to these small micro enterprises.
Yeah.
Right.
We also provide microinsurance at our expense. So in case, the best example is usually the food truck driver, easiest way to illustrate it, in the sense that if, say, the food truck driver broke his arm, broke his leg, because it's a group personal accident insurance. So, obviously, if he can't drive the food truck, he can't pay the financings. He's got 40,000 out of 50,000 left. The entire principal and outstanding balance is covered, and be paid back to our trustees. Our trustees will pay back to all our investors.
So it's not just about lending to us, not just about financing. We want to give more, and we give these financing to these micro enterprises and SMEs. So we provide them free personal accident insurance. We also provide them free online video tutorial on basic debt management and basic bookkeeping.
In English and Malay.
In English and Malay. So they know what to do with those funds when they get it. A lot of these makciks get these funds. They don't know how to manage it. So they actually have to pass our modules before we give them the financing.
Interesting.
Yeah, the carrot and stick method always works. Yeah.
So most of the examples that you've given me have actually been in the F&B segment. Is that predominantly the segment that you see coming in for P2P financing?
We do a lot of F&B. We also do kind of retail, so they have bundle shops and bundle clothes. Some are purely online. We have one sells halal confectionery from his bedroom. He needed a small amount, maybe about 6,000 ringgit.
Yeah, first one.
So that's the kind of micro stuff we do. But on the other side, we also do SMEs as well. We do invoice financing as well. So that if you have an invoice, you can finance your invoice because you're waiting for the paymaster to pay.
Yep.
We finance it before, in the short term, 3 months. Yeah, 3 months to 6 months. So we do the whole gamut.
Yep.
I'm curious about the demand for P2P today and what it was like pre-pandemic. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, I think the demand actually increased because during the pandemic, Bank Negara Malaysia slashed the interest rates. So a lot of the investors or the lenders on our platform and all other platforms were looking for yield. So the average yield on a typical P2P investment note is anywhere between 12 to 18% per annum. While bank deposit rates were paying maybe 2% at most, maybe 1.5. So when the pandemic hit, actually we saw a huge increase in lenders coming on our platform looking for yield. So the demand has definitely increased. And also people are looking at alternative ways to finance their business. Not everyone can pass the strict credit criteria that banks are giving. So they're looking for alternative space. But having said that, we still need a long way to go to tell people what does P2P financing actually mean.
Yeah, but I think also the important part of this adoption was well, two things. One, I guess, was smartphone penetration. Whereas 2018 already was about nearly 80%. I think now 2022 is a lot higher. But I think also the fact that we absorb all the Islamic costs, the Sharia costs, Bakalah costs, etc. So then, since we're not passing that cost on, then whether the issuer, Malay, Chinese, Indian, line wants to raise money, there's no extra cost to them. And likewise, the investors, all the ones who are looking for Sharia assets, because most of our investors are actually looking for Sharia ethical principles, as TD Tunku Dani always says, they go hand in hand, ethical and Islamic principles. And basically, so I think that was also a good part of the growth, like the fact that since we absorb all these costs in between, whether they raise conventional Islamic, the costings and the returns are the same.
I think if you look at the overall market, you see that in terms of the funding dispersed for the P2P financing space since the launch in 2016, is just under 2.3 billion ringgit. And since the pandemic, it's actually grown at a faster and faster rate. So there's a lot more demand for P2P financing.
Now, earlier on, Tunku Dani, you mentioned that report that was issued by the Securities Commission, I think it was last year, 2021, which showed the 90 billion ringgit funding gap for micro SMEs. And this phenomenon is reportedly likely to continue and, to exacerbate if there are no alternative methods raised. So what are your thoughts on this, and why do you think P2B can be a solution?
I think because it's always, P2P financing will always be an alternative financing option for people. We always take care of the businesses that fall through the net of traditional banking. So if it's too strict to get a loan from a bank, then come to us. Because of this gap, there's a definite need for this alternative financing. I think the government has noted that, which is why they're giving out these licenses to the P2P operators. And even more so, Bank Negara Malaysia is now giving out digital banking licenses. So there's a big opportunity and big market for all to serve and to help small micro enterprises and SMEs grow to the next level.
Also, I think the microLEAP Plus was launched also to take care of the invoice financing, and because we use the invoice as a security as well. We make sure it goes through a secondary current account that Tunku Dani and myself are the co-signatories and co-internet banking checker maker. So at least that's the check and balance as well. And then same thing, when the invoice gets paid to the account that we control, then we will pass the money on to the trustees. Trustees pays the investors. If it's a one-time deal, we close the account. But usually the invoice financing deals that we have are multiple, so we just keep that account going. So because then at least we know there's that check and balance. Because otherwise, invoice, especially pre-sales invoice financing, like what we do is if we provide the financing and then if we don't get that money back, then they could jolly well run away. So at least in this case, there's that check and balance as well. So
right. Okay, we are going to need to take a quick break for some messages. But when we come back, we talk about P2P financing from an investor's perspective, as well as some P2P platform dupes out there. All that and more happening on Resource Centre. Stay tuned, BFM 89.9.
Beyond frivolous mishmash, BFM 89.9.
And we're back. You are listening to Resource Centre. This is Audrey Raj. In the studio with me today, it's always nice to have physical human beings in the studio with me today. I have Tunku Dani Nasifuddin Muzaffar, CEO and founder of microLEAP, as well as Matthew Fernandez, partner and COO of microLEAP. Now, as an advocate to peer-to-peer financing, Tunku Dani has seen firsthand how quickly the financial gap can be closed when business owners experience better cash flow and fewer struggles after obtaining the funds that they need from independent investors. Tunku Dani, maybe you can give me some examples of, the stories that you've seen, the success stories that you've seen, following successful P2P lending.
So, as you said before, the pisang goreng seller down in JB was a definite success story. But also look at in terms of the investors or lenders on our platform. Why did they come to us? Why did they come to microLEAP? And also the larger market. So it's a very much hashtag jika kata kita, as we say. And so we want to build a community where the lenders will help MSMEs get the financing they need. The investors, in return, will get return on their investment, their loans or financing. So that's the kind of build the community that we want to foster and build. So for on our platform, it's not just about financing; it's all about impact. They want to help these micro enterprises, these SME, get the financing that would for them to grow their business and take them to the next level, which they just can't get it from traditional means. And also being Shariah compliant, we have both Muslim investors and non-Muslim investors, because the non-Muslim investors believe in the ethical nature of Shariah compliant financing. When they invest on our platform and it's Shariah compliant, they know they're not investing in an alcohol company, a gambling company, or even a tobacco company, and they know that it's an ethical investment and you're making an impact. So that's the kind of community that we want to grow, and I think we're getting at that level right now.
Yep.
I want to talk more about what's in it for the investors when it comes to P2P. I understand the short-term nature of P2P can help investors, see quicker returns. But is there more to it, from an investor's perspective? Why would you want to be an investor on a P2P platform?
Yeah, for one is you are providing first-hand impact onto a small business. If you put your deposit in a bank, the bank will pull the money together and then they will disperse it to normally very high credit quality names. But if you become a P2P investor on our platform, you're really helping these machis get the financing they need. You're helping this SME, get the short-term financing they need, and at the same time, you are enjoying high returns than you would get compared to a deposit rate. So there's both good yield, good returns, but also the impact, a portion of investing in an investment note on a P2P platform that people enjoy.
Yeah, and then also I think it's good to point out that the returns are monthly. So versus whether it's unit trusts, etc., that are paying yearly or over a long stretch of time, we are paying monthly, and and usually most of our investors are using the auto invest that actually compounds your returns over the next, especially if the notes are 3 months, and if you're not taking it out or you don't need to take it out so fast, you can actually just let that grow and maybe you'll earn a compound of maybe closer from 12 to 18, you might actually earn more than that. So that's one. And then I think also the fact that again they know immediately whether our website's similar to Kiva in the sense that it's personalized. So and there's a fact sheet, downloadable fact sheet as well. So you get to know exactly who you're investing in, why they need it for, and you as I like to call him TD. TD likes to point out that at least you know exactly what you're investing in. It's a bit more personalized in that sense. So the impact is immediate.
What kind of checks go into the investors portion before you allow them on the platform?
So we have to do our anti-money laundering checks, which is very strict. We have to make sure that they are an actual investor. So we have to check the IC, make sure that the source of income is checked. And so we want to make sure that the right people come on our platform. If there's any anti-money laundering checks and the red flag is pointed out, then we can't put them on our platform. So we are very strict and we follow the guidelines of Securities Commission.
Have you noticed any trends on the kind of investors that actually come on this platform? Are they like former entrepreneurs, retired professionals? Do you have any data on your investors?
Yeah, it's a nice spread. So we have a lot of people who are retired, who has some idle cash and they want to invest in Shariah-compliant investment notes. They're the ones who maybe will lend or invest with bigger tickets items. And then we have the smaller kind of crowd, the real crowd who just have small amount of idle funds. They maybe invest 50 ringgit, 100 ringgit at a time. But we also have corporations and institutions on our platform. So those have, instead of putting it in a bank at 2%, they really want high yield between 12 to 18% per annum. So we get a large gamut of investors.
Right. And I'm just curious here because you were mentioning before we came on air that you were last on BFM towards the end of the year 2020. And back then you had disbursed 1 million plus?
Yeah, so end of October, I think 2020, we were on open for business. I think we had only dispersed 1 million ringgit. As of recently, June 2022, we've dispersed 27 million ringgit. So our growth is huge, and hopefully we can carry on growing at that massive, quick pace.
Yeah, I think it's also, we always look at the balance of both. We'll always have our micro in hand, but micro SMEs in hand, but the microLEAP Plus is actually, and again, the Islamic bit is when we really took off. Yeah.
Now, I understand that there are actually P2P platform dupes out there. Can you tell me more about this and how it's disrupting business for licensed platforms like yourselves?
Yeah, so sometimes, because I'm always looking at the P2P space, the peer-to-peer market, I always get suggested posts on FB. And some of these suggested posts are people who claim to have a license from the Securities Commission. So straight away I'll call Matt. Matt, look at this. What we're going to do. And Matt's the enforcer. So Matt, you tell Audrey what you do.
Yeah, exactly. No, first things first, there is a committee within Securities Commission anyway. So we'll let our registered market, because we're a registered market operator, so we'll let the RMO team find out straight away, XYZ. And then thankfully he's done all his screenshots, so even if they deleted his post, or we have it already. And the best part is sometimes they'll openly admit that, because are you licensed with Securities Commission? Yes. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they actually said that, because they're not.
Of course they have to say yes.
Yeah. No, but you advertised it. It was one of the bullet points in the advertisement. So it's like, wow. The cojones and the gumption on these people, So I don't know. It's not just those guys. If you get some who, they say that, it's a trustee setup, but nowhere close, So, because otherwise, if you're not licensed by either one, there's only two regulators anyway. So you're not licensed by Bank Negara or Securities Commission. I don't think you should, actually bother to try, but I don't think it'll stop either. I see that there'll be more and more of these guys who maybe even if they're thinking of getting the license, they might straight away say that, hey, come to us.
Yeah. So what happens is Matt will speak to Securities Commission. Yeah. Securities Commission will actually contact that platform or supposedly platform and call them and said, how can you say that you're licensed when you're not? And then most of the time they take off the advert, offhand. Yeah. Even worse, if they still continue, then the Securities Commission will come and stop them and close them down, or even block their website. So there are many ways that our regulator will do to enforce this. Because it gives a bad name if, say, for example, you lend to an unlicensed P2P financial operator. They can take your money and run away. So my advice to all listeners is always to check that is regulated. There is a page on Securities Commission website which gives you the list of the 11 P2P financing operators. So always check that you're investing in a regulated entity, and just make sure that you don't fall for these scams.
Yeah, I was on Invest Securities Commission talk recently, InvestSmart, and the shortcut is actually microleapasia.com website. Go straight to sitemap, click on the SC logo. You go straight to that website. That's the easiest. Yeah.
Has it disrupted business for existing platforms at all? What are the challenges in dealing with these dupes? When you're running a legitimate, licensed, ethical platform.
There's I think there's a small amount of disruption. I think that's because whenever we see it, we straight away tell Securities Commission. And Securities Commission, I say, other P2P players do the same. Because all of us want to make sure that everyone invests in a regulated, safe space and under actual rules that we follow. So us and the other P2P operators are quick to point out any scams. So there's minimal disruption, but if we didn't, tell the Securities Commission, it could snowball into something big. So I'm happy that the Securities Commission is open to this, and straight away they will call that supposed scam and try to close it down.
Right. Okay, before I let the both of you off, I understand that your goal for microLEAP is to make the platform the optimum P2P platform in aiding SMEs to recover back their business. How do you plan to do this? And, what's next for microLEAP in the short term and in the long run as well?
I think for us, one is partnerships to grow. So we're actually close to a few government-linked companies. We're close to SME Corporation, where they've dispersed 10 million financing through our platform. We're also making inroads with actual banks that want to help and finance micro enterprises that they can't help themselves. And also we want to really go national. A lot of the P2P operators are just focused on the Klang Valley, but there's a huge market outside of the Klang Valley. And happy to say that we, according to the Securities Commission, we were the only platform that had an issuer in every single state in Malaysia. So we want to go outside Klang Valley and really help people in Sarawak, Sabah, borrowers who need financing in Terengganu, Pahang, Kelantan, everywhere that we can help.
Equal access to the platform.
Yes.
All over.
And it's in English and BM as well. So, that makes it easier.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. For everyone out there listening who'd like more information on microLEAP and microLEAP Plus, is there a website that they can go to? How can they get more information?
Yep, they just go on www.microleapasia.com and everything is there.
Yep, and all our socials as well, Facebook, Instagram, just look up for microLEAP. Just make sure you don't go to a fake page, that's all.
And if you missed out on any part of this show, you can go look for the podcast on our website. That's bfm.my. You can also find all our podcasts on the BFM app that's available on the Apple App Store and on Google Play. I've been speaking with Tunku Danny, Nasaifuddin Muzaffar, as well as Matthew Fernandez from microLEAP. This is Audrey Raj, and you've been listening to Resource Centre on Enterprise, BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.